right, so, okay, let's start things off. Welcome to the knowns and unknowns of myopia management and other cool stuff in optometry. And this is brought to you by the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control. And it's also brought to you by GP Specialist. GP Specialist is 100% dedicated to Ortho-K and has one of the world's largest portfolios of Ortho-K lenses. We thank them for their support. And I'd also like to say thank you to Contimac for underwriting a portion of today's program. Optimum is one of the most popular lens materials in the market. All right, so before we get started, I want to also add that the opinions and viewpoints presented in tonight's webinar do not necessarily reflect the AAOMC or the sponsors of this program. And this is episode 4 of our ongoing 6-part series. We have a great panel discussion for tonight. Does myopia management have a place in private practice, corporate accounts, and big box? And then we're gonna end things with a brief clinical corner with Dr. Leah Johnson. All right, so for our main topic, let me introduce our panelists. First off, we have Dr. Ariel Cerenzie. She's an optometrist, myopia management enthusiast, and recent mother who frequently speaks, writes, and consults on the science and clinical integration of myopia management. She practices in a private practice setting in Charlotte, North Carolina at Vision Source Studio 2020. She's a fellow of the American Academy of Optometry and Scleral Lens Education Society. In addition, she is the secretary for her local optometric society and an active member of the North Carolina Optometric Society. Ariel, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And then next we have Dr. David Grosswald. Dr. Grosswald is the founder and director of the Eye Care Center of Conyers, Georgia. He has a special interest in serving patients with the latest diagnostic and practice management technologies, which includes extensive experience with orthokeratology and scleral lenses. He is a frequent lecturer on topics such as custom contact lens designs and practice management. David, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you asking me to come on board tonight.
Thank you for joining us. And I'm Matthew Hersberg. I'm the executive director of the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control. I'll be the host and moderator for tonight's panel discussion. All right, so to kick things off, I want to paint a little bit of a picture here for you because year in and year out, pre-pandemic, I kept hearing over and over again, this is about to blow up. Myopia management, Ortho-K, this is about to blow up. The AAOMC holds an annual education meeting called Vision by Design. It's the Super Bowl of myopia management. We teach doctors how to do Ortho-K. We have the bleeding edge clinical and academic lectures. And, our attendance keeps growing every year steadily and slowly, but it doesn't blow up the way that, I'm being told that it's about to happen. So, with the advent of the pandemic and from lockdown, kids being in front of computer screens 8+ hours a day now, I'm hearing it again. This is about to blow up. This is mainstream. You can't deny it any longer. So I want to pose, what is the future of myopia management? What is the near future of it? Is it going to remain the domain of private practice, or is it have a place in corporate accounts and a big box structure? So Ariel, I want to start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your practice? You're a Vision Source doctor. That's why I asked you to be on the program. So tell us about your practice, tell us about Vision Source, and how did you get into myopia management?
So Vision Source is a group of private practitioners that get to operate completely independently under the Vision Source name if they want to. And basically the benefits of that is you get to practice independently, but you also get the, group buying power for equipment, materials. And even more than that is when the way that the territories are set up for Vision Source doctors, you really get to operate as kind of like a network, a family, a group of colleagues, and really learn from each other what's working in your practice that might help somebody else, down the other side of Charlotte. And it's really helpful to have just a group of colleagues that you can meet with on a regular basis. So I've really enjoyed the independence that I'm able to have as a Vision Source doctor, and knowing that myopia management was something I really wanted to do. It was important to me that I was able to schedule, the way that I wanted to schedule. I was able to bill the way I wanted to bill. I was able to offer the types of treatment options that I wanted to offer without anybody really telling me how I needed to be practicing.
Gotcha. And David, similar question for you. The reason why I wanted you on this program is because you started in a corporate franchise environment, you became a private practice owner, and then recently sold to private equity. So similar kind of question. Tell us about your practice and how you got into myopia management.
Sure. So actually, even before that, Matt, I was right out of school. I was in a very well-known private practice here in the Atlanta area. And for many reasons, I found I was working for a Pearl franchisee and found that to be, for many reasons, a better environment for me. And after working for, a couple of franchisees, I decided, hey, I could do this on my own. One thing about that type of environment in terms of it's your own business. I mean, you're paying a royalty to a corporation, but they let you run the professional side, whatever way you wanted. And I like to be busy. You hang out, that well-recognized name, and patients come running. And but what I realized is that many appreciated my services, but some came and said, well, I'm here to get glasses. I'll go get my medical care somewhere else, even though we invested in the best technology. So I made it my mission to differentiate myself in everything we did in the practice, be it the way we took tonometry and et cetera, right? But ortho keratology spoke to me many, many years ago. And I thought it was a great way to do something different than my competitors were not, right? And fell in love with the technology many years ago. Went to Vegas and heard Craig Norman speak about it. And that was 1993, I think it was. So long time ago. Yeah.
Definitely. And do you find that, now that you've sold your practice to private equity, do you find that you have this overarching overlord mentality working in that environment, or do they let you still practice the way that you want to practice?
So luckily, the company I partnered with is very doctor centric and basically lets us run the practice and promise to do so. Let us run our practice just as it was before. And of course, it makes sense as they bought me because we were profitable, right? And so they embrace orthokeratology. We do some functional medicine, and they embrace any technology that brings in revenue, frankly. Yeah. Gotcha. So it's been, they applaud the fact that we do orthokeratology.
It's interesting that you say that because, my background being that I've worked a lot with optometrists like yourself, David, and a lot of private practice owners. And it's always been that private practice, Ortho K and myopia management should be the domain of private practice. And there's this feeling that, corporate, if you work under corporate optometry, you're not going to be able to do myopia management the way it should. So first I want to ask you both, we'll start with Ariel. Is myopia management going to be the standard of care moving forward? If we're taking this look into the future, if we're going to see if myopia management does have a place in those other settings, I guess the place to start would be, is myopia management going to become the standard of care? What do you think?
Yeah, I think when you look at what is the standard of care, the standard of care is offering somebody a treatment or a solution based off of the best solution for them. And from just countless, thousands of research and scientific studies, we know that if you have a progressive myopic child and they get to a certain level of myopia, that could potentially do harm to them. The higher the level of myopia that they have, the more at risk they are for these diseases. We see that everywhere. It's every magazine that you open, every webinar that talks about myopia management. And so in the back of your mind, if you know that and you're prescribing just single vision contact lenses and single vision glasses and watching this get worse, despite the fact that there are better options out there, then I kind of fear that we might be looking at some trouble later in life when that parent comes to you and they, hopefully sometime soon, parents start to learn about myopia management and come to you asking for it. And when that time comes, were you taking the best care of that patient at that time? And if you weren't, were you sending them to somebody that you trusted would?
Right. And I think you bring up a very interesting point because, I was just speaking with a mom the other day, and she says, this can't be good for my kids' eyes, right? The amount of attention and time in front of computers and devices. I think parents are going to be coming into practices with their kids saying something needs to be done. David, let me ask you, do you agree with what Ariel said? Is myopia management going to be the standard of care? Because obviously not every practitioner can do it.
Right. Of course, I wish it was the standard of care. Right. I think, standard of care, I think those are strong words. The standard of care says that we must treat the patient in this manner. Otherwise, if something goes awry, we can get sued. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think those are frankly strong words, but I would love it to be the standard of care because I think really realistically what we're at risk of happening is, and Ariel, you kind of touched on this, is the patients are going to hear about it. They're going to come back to me and say, why did you not give this option to me and my child? We see this now with cataracts. You may think the patient's not a great candidate for multifocal intraocular lenses, cataract surgery, but if they hear about their neighbor having great success, no matter what, kind of crazy engineer they are, if you did not, give them that option, it's not going to reflect well on you as a practitioner. So, but indeed, I'd love to see it as a standard of care because it prevents problems down the road, mm-hmm. social and of course medical eye conditions. So it should be.
And I remember seeing an article recently about the World Council of Optometry passed a resolution for myopia management to be considered standard of care. So I think the verbiage, and the talk is getting out there as it mm-hmm. becoming the standard of care.
In order for it to become the standard, well, I should say it this way: that with corporations becoming involved, with a product like MySight coming out with companies making orthokeratology lenses and advertising them and promoting them, it's helping us out. It's helping mm-hmm. that whole mission, no doubt.
For sure.
So let me ask you this then. I mean, I think the position in the past has been, especially from the people within the AAOMC, is they've been saying every doctor should be doing this. You've got to take care of these kids. And I think the more important message is, not every doctor should be doing this. If your heart's not in it, if you're not good with kids, you shouldn't be doing it. Choose a different specialty, then refer your myopia management patients to somebody who does. But then it poses this question to me, and I could be totally wrong. And if I am, please correct me. But if we're looking at the very near future of myopia management, then that means that this is a symbiotic relationship with corporate accounts, corporate optometry, big box environments. We're all going to have to work together because whatever a patient is hearing from one source is going to affect all of us. And so I'm wondering, in a corporate environment, in a big box environment, is it possible for us to then all work together in that setting? David, you've had the most amount of experience that, of anyone I've met in these environments. Is it possible to do a little bit of myopia management in a corporate or big box environment, or should they just stay away from it?
No, I think, like you said, it has some corporations can be, very laissez-faire, and that's the way. And again, I'll only mention Pearl because it's quite known that I was a Pearl franchisee, right? For many years, I had 3 locations, and again, they could care less what the practitioner did, because it was our own business, right? We had quite a bit of a contract that said what we could and couldn't do, and it was very liberating for the eye doctor, frankly. But I do have, for example, an associate that worked for me that went to go work for a big box retailer. He was quite comfortable with orthokeratology, and it was a great opportunity for him. He's built a huge practice there, and he brought orthokeratology to this particular office. Well, because he could not sell the contact lenses, right? Basically, that became a little bit of an issue. Well, it's not like a soft contact lens, but the corporation was selling, has the accounts with the contact lenses. When the patient would write a check for the contact lenses, they were writing it to the big box retailer. Well, the manager, confronted him about it and basically said, this is probably not in your contract. And he decided to stop doing orthokeratology, even though it's something he loved. One of his colleagues at another location in another part of town was faced with the same exact situation and was told, you shouldn't fit the lenses, but he had patients still coming and buying replacement lenses, and they actually took the lease away from him. So that's one situation that occurred. But that's not the way it is with every single corporation. It just really depends if the corporation is making the profit on the contact lenses and does not allow the doctor to share in that revenue. Generally, it's going to be a difficult thing, I think, for them to do orthokeratology.
Yeah. And I wonder if, and Ariel, I want to ask you this, I wonder if there's a way to, develop some sort of referral network or co-management network. I had dinner with a guy the other day who, he had a very strong argument for developing a co-management network. And I think it starts with referrals. Vision Source is a network of doctors. Not every Vision Source doctor is going to do myopia management. Do y'all have like a great referral system in the network? Do you find that that's an easy prospect, to get referrals from a doctor who's not doing myopia management?
No, I haven't really seen that from the myopia management perspective. And I think I get referrals from other optometrists in the area that are not Vision Source. And for that side of things, what you kind of have to figure out is what's important for the relationship. Is that the doctor that's referring to you? Do they just care about exams and seeing exams? Or does eyewear matter to them? I mean, is that going to help with their numbers to help them look good if they're selling eyewear? And just kind of understanding what's important to them. Do you want me to keep this patient with you for primary care, and then they just come to me for their myopia management and axial length measurement, stuff like that? But yeah, specifically with Vision Source, I think that other Vision Source doctors wouldn't have issues referring to one another, but our territories are so far apart from one another that I don't know that we've really run into scenarios that, a referral would be convenient for the patient to drive however many miles to get to one of us.
Mm-hmm. I think that, in some cases, the fear is that, if a doc who's not doing myopia management refers their patient to one that is, they're going to lose that patient. And, I've heard some doctors say, if I'm going to send this patient back to the other doctor, what kind of work are they going to do on them if I've done ortho care myopia management?
Yeah.
And then, I think about the big box environment. You have, the big box environment or the corporate environment has got to be even tougher as an intimidating prospect, because if you're a private practitioner, you have to rethink how you want to do myopia management in your practice. You got to spend more time with the patient. You got to be good with kids. And then if you're in these other environments, you seem more restrictive. So it doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of success in that environment. Maybe the answer is co-management. I mean, I think when we had discussed this before, David, you had said, like, if the patient is coming from a big box environment, they're not concerned. Their mind is on who is my next patient. I was wondering if you could go into that a little bit more. If a big box environment is referring patients to a myopia management specialist, is that like a great symbiotic relationship that we could create somehow?
So there's a big box retailer, right? I mean, within walking distance to my office, and the doc there is dynamite. Happens to be a really good optometrist, and she refers scleral lens patients. I mean, we don't get too many Ortho K referrals, and that's probably partly my fault for not going and explaining the wonderful benefits of it. But I do know that she is incredibly busy, and she makes zero revenue, on the eyeglass sale. So and what we were talking about previously, Matt, is that, she loses that patient. No one wants to lose a patient, right? We all want to stay busy. But it's not as harmful as a private optometrist who's paying staff and has overhead and cost of goods sitting on the wall. They want to move products. So I can understand how it's harder to set up a relationship with a private OD. I do know that in Georgia, we've got a very active Georgia Optometric Association, and everyone loves and knows each other. But we get questions or looking for a doc who may fit Ortho K, and most often those questions are not coming from private docs; they're actually coming from corporate doctors. And I've gotten a few referrals from that, just not locally. But every scenario is different. No one wants to lose any patients, but I think that the motivation to keep the patient for life is perhaps a little bit less in a corporate setting like that, because they're very busy doing exams.
Yeah, and then I have a question from the audience. Can an OD write an RX for OK lenses, and then the patient fills it out at a big box optical? And I think that poses this. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I
said good luck with that. It's just, I think it's very complicated.
I
don't do that with gas perms. I won't allow that with gas perms, because they're going to end up back in your chair and you have no control over how that lens was made. And yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to point out that, we're talking about a different kind of practitioner. In the AAOMC, we say, you're a colleague, not a competitor. And that's a similar theme that I find in a lot of, myopia management specialists. David, why is that? Why is that kind of moniker exists in our community? Like Vision by Design, it's like everybody will, sit you down and you can ask questions of people. There's a strong sense of community. Well, why is that?
If you've never been to one of the meetings, I mean, I was at probably the first meeting. But it started out as a very small group and lots and lots of collaboration, lots and lots of sitting down, hovering over laptops, and you get to know one another. And this is a skill set you have to learn, and you can't do that without colleagues that become very good friends. My best friends in optometry, we talk daily. Email, text, and talk, and it's a group of us that met at the Ortho Keratology Academy meeting years ago. Yeah.
Ariel, is there a similar sense of camaraderie in the Vision Source network in the sense of, there's a myopia protocol in the Vision Source network? I mean, is there that same level of camaraderie, and, is that protocol, extended throughout the network?
Yeah, it is. So the myopia management protocol is available for all of the Vision Source doctors, and it not only goes over the science of myopia management, but also how can you incorporate that into clinic? How can you schedule these? How do you train your staff? And there's calculators that you can determine what you can bill based off of your practice metrics. And that's so important, because you can talk to other doctors about what they're charging, but their practice might have 10 more staff members than you do. So, those kinds of resources are available, which is really nice to have this protocol set in place and have some guidance, because there's really not much out there in terms of guidance on myopia management. And if you start here and you see progression, well, then what do you do? And so when we have meetings monthly, our local meetings, we like to talk about these things and figure out what we can do to help one another. But even aside from other doctors that aren't Vision Source doctors, me personally, I would just love for as many people to be doing myopia management as possible, because it it really is beneficial for the kids. It's beneficial for our profession to let people know that there are options out there, and it does benefit you when more people know about it. And that's really kind of the bottom line is awareness. Think about how amazing it would be not to have to talk to a patient 20 minutes about what myopia is and just them walk in like kids do when they need braces and the parents are ready to go. That would be amazing. I dream of that day.
Right. That's
why referrals are great. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of why I wanted to bring this topic up, is because, if we can, get, everybody on board with the same level of care or the same protocol or the same idea, what is it going to take to make myopia management go mainstream? David, what do you think? What is it going to take? Are we there yet? How is this going to happen?
It's funny. I heard a lecture one time, and I kind of talked about this the other day, is that in order to motivate people in advertising, it's usually fear, right? And so I think that explaining, and really pointing out to the parents what the potentials are. The glass is getting thicker, and of course, worst case scenario, medical eye problems later on. I think that's a key component of it. But I think Ariel, what you just mentioned, what Vision Source is doing, that's fantastic. So the entity that I sold to, the private equity firm, again, very doctor centric. They've got 4 pillars, dry eye, glaucoma, cataract co-management, and macular degeneration. And they're having great educational, webinars and putting in, best doctor practices and things like that. And myopia control needs to be one of those. And that's how we, as you said, spread the word and make it part of the daily discussion, and really getting the staff on board to discuss, and just, but I will mention that to my professional affairs doc.
David, I think that you should become the head of myopia management. Take the lead.
I'd love to, yeah.
I'm reminded about, episode 1 of this series. We had Dr. Glenda Mohiputh on, and she's doing Ortho K at a big box location at Walmart. But I often feel like she's the exception and not the rule, because in my experience, again, if I'm wrong, by all means, shout me down. But I feel like, a myopia management specialist is almost like a unique breed of practitioner. And I often wonder if this is just going to remain a niche and not become mainstream in the optical industry, because it requires more out of the individual to do it. Like, the majority of the doctors that I work are super passionate, very dedicated. They get knocked down, they get it back up again and try again. They grind, they make it work somehow. So, Ariel, is that an unfair assessment of the industry? I don't want to throw any shade on anybody, because like I said, if you don't want to do it, I don't think you should. But is this really just about a specific kind of individual, or is it possible for myopia management to go mainstream?
Well, I think number one, you need to like seeing kids, because if you don't, then you don't want to see them more throughout the year than what you have to, But I would argue that if you know how to fit a contact lens, then we have an FDA approved contact lens that you can literally go into your diagnostic room and grab and put on the eye and make sure that it fits good, that they see well out of it. And sure, there are going to be patients that don't fall within candidacy based off of prescription. And then you can refer for those options, but that might be a smaller amount of your patients. And so I like to think about it kind of like dry eye. Maybe you can manage somebody with whatever treatment option you feel comfortable with, because you want to take care of them as best as possible. And if you're like, oh, well, this patient really just needs an IPL or, some sort of treatment that you don't have, then you take care of that patient by sending them to somebody else. And, if you can prescribe an eye drop and look for side effects of an eye drop with dry eye or glaucoma, why can you not do that with myopia management?
I think,
Definitely.
and I'll parlay on that. I think that in order for it to become mainstream, I think people have to get out of their comfort zone. Yes, you're going to have to purchase some technology. You really do have to have a topographer. There was a time where we said, don't say that, right? Because it scares people away from getting into myopia management, but you need. So it's a minimal investment, and that's and I say minimal, yeah, it's money, but the real investment is your time and learning myopia control. I mean, you've got to go to the conventions, right? When I got started, there weren't any conventions. We had to learn from books, and from colleagues. And but it took a lot of mistakes. It took a lot of figuring out how to work this into the busy day, because you don't just say, would you like your kid to sleep in contact lenses and be able to see tomorrow, right? The first thing they say is and so they'll wear glasses the next day. It's always the same thing, right? And so there's an investment that has to be done. But in this day and age with shrinking reimbursements, I mean, I'm so frankly so thankful that I'm in the position I'm in. We built a big practice, and I don't have to worry about it. Now I go to work and I don't worry about things, right? I do the things that I love, and orthokeratology is one of those things. But even today, it brings me the highest revenue and the greatest reward. I mean, nothing cements these families to our practice. They move away, they go to college, and they come back and see us, right? I mean, we've had patients fly back into town who no longer live in town to get their eyes examined. They're not kids anymore, right? So I've got patients that are I fitted 20 years ago, and they are the most loyal patients. So if you're trying to build a practice and you're worried about shrinking reimbursement and everything's going up in price, but the IMED eye exam and the VSB eye exam, they're not giving us any more dollars. Since the day I graduated from school, orthokeratology just opens up a huge opportunity. And not only that, but once you cement these parents to your practice, I mean, they're going to be candidates for all the other specialty things that Ortho K opened my eyes to do, right? Because if we can do what we've done with these Ortho K patients, I knew I could knock it out of the park with sclerals when they came about, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they bring up a very good point where you talk about like the position of the AAOMC is the topographer is absolutely essential, right? And I think it's interesting that you mentioned that back in the day, it was like, oh, don't mention that because you don't want to scare them away. Ariel, what's scaring docs away from myopia management and Ortho K now, like in your experience?
Yeah, so I have pretty good insight into that through some of the speaking engagements that I do. And the number one question is, well, what do I charge? What do I bill for this? Because I'm seeing this patient back multiple times. They're maybe coming back a million more times for INR because we're fitting contact lenses at 6-7 years old. That's a big one. And then also, how do you change your schedule template? And then how do you train your staff? Like, how do you have extra time and resources to be able to train your team? And I think that's really difficult. I mean, with a lot of other things that we do, we can kind of fit it in within our 15 to 20 minute time slots and we're golden. But with myopia management, it requires more time, and it's really important that you get compensated for that time.
That's a great point, because I recently heard somebody say, how can we get away with charging or insisting on a certain, I don't want to mention amounts, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but do we have an ethical obligation to not charge as much if this is, such a life-altering treatment? And, I find it interesting that, if you're going to put in the extra amount of work, you need to make sure that you get compensated for your time. If you're going to have to rearrange your practice, you're going to have to rearrange how you do things. You need to get compensated for your time. David, I want to know from you, I've heard that like some docs start with like that 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week to fit that myopia management patient into the program. Did you have a similar experience? Do you agree with what Ariel was saying? Like, how does somebody who is intimidated by the prospect of, getting compensated for their time, re-educating their staff, like how does somebody get started in myopia management from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I mean, these days, the first thing they do is they go to the AAOMC boot camp, and he's not paying me to say that, okay? I mean, the bottom line is that there's all your tools, right? Back when I got started, boy, I don't know, we gave everything away because I was experimenting, and we undercharged, and I spent way too much time. I saw them back the next day because I was a nervous wreck. I made them parents drive the kid in with the contacts on. I don't do that anymore, So now we've got it honed down, and really they don't really at this point. It really doesn't take that much more than a boy. It's in fact less time than a monovision, toric monovision follow up with a right. I mean it takes, but you have to get your systems in place, and you have to have a fantastic team, right? They have to understand Ortho-K soup to nuts, because they're the one doing most of the work. From the doctor standpoint, most of the work is the explanation and the convincing. Once you pull that phoropter away from their face, right? Once you're giving them your recommendations, your strong recommendations, it just opens up, a can of worms, and the staff is instant messaging me, telling me to hurry it up, right? Mm-hmm. So really what we should be doing is having these patients back for a consultation, which like we do a ton for scleral lenses, but we're not doing that right now for Ortho-K. I mean, we offer it, but instead I just empty out right there during the exam and get behind, right? Mm-hmm. But, it's funny what you just mentioned, Ariel, because I reached out in anticipation of this webinar. I reached out to a few friends of mine that are in corporate entities. And this particular gentleman works for a major retailer that we all know and love. And basically, he happens to have the contact lens revenue. So he could have the option of doing Ortho-K. And his answer to me, I said, why don't you? And he said, it's just way too time consuming. So his perception of that has kept him away. I've got another buddy who he now is in private practice, but worked at a budget major retailer for many years, and then opened up a Taj Mahal of a private practice. And we were out to dinner one night with a bunch of friends, and basically my associate, my partner, my associate, and I were talking about Ortho-K. And he looked at us and he reared back. And this guy did a fellowship at a prestigious at Omni years ago. And he just said, that stuff doesn't work. He's like, are you kidding me? So, a lot of optometrists just have no idea. I think this was a few years ago. And I think that Ortho-K is now hitting the front page. But people just have some preconceived notions about how it all works, and they're not going to understand it until they engage and come to a convention or talk to docs who are doing it.
Ariel, do you agree with David said?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better. But yeah, I did a myopia management CE presentation at our local optometric society. And afterwards, I had a doctor come up to me and say, I can't believe that you do orthokeratology and you have a kid sleeping in lenses. I mean, gosh, think about what could happen to their eyes. And I was like, I would love to send you Mark Bullimore's paper and all of these amazing papers that have come out to show you that it is very safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a similar experience here in Chicago. I went to an optometrist here in the city, and she doesn't know me. She doesn't know anything about me. And I sat down in her chair and I said, do you know anything about this Ortho-K thing? And maybe this is unfair because I'm the executive director of a nonprofit who represents and works with orthokeratologists. And she was like, well, I think the studies are inconclusive and I don't know if the information, I think, it only works on some kids. I don't think it's a viable option for everyone. And it kind of points towards this scenario. And I think it was Dr. Despeditas who brought this up to me. He speaks about it on stage where he says, you know what, before there's a myopia epidemic, there's an obesity epidemic. This is common knowledge. This is in the public's mind. Everybody knows, about the health concerns and fitness and eating right. And yet that's still a problem. So it makes me wonder, like, Ariel, do you think that is something that we can overcome? Should we go directly to the patient? Should organizations start going directly to the patient? Or is the onus on us as organizations, like in the Vision Source Network, in order to educate doctors? Is it just a matter of saturation? We just need to get that message out there enough times, that consistent message. What do you think?
I think it's so tough. I mean, obesity you can see, but you look at a kid that's a -4 and you have no idea the way that they see the world and the way that their quality of life is affected. And so the impact that marketing has, it's tough because, it's just you don't see it. David talked a little bit about fear being a good motivator to enroll in myopia management or to get it. And what I find for my patient demographics in general is if I show the parent what their child's world looks like, that's the most impactful. And that's hard to really demonstrate with marketing and to get to an audience that gets it. But gosh, I sure hope that it does happen, and either through a collective group of optometrists that are doing it and all of these wonderful organizations that specialize in myopia management and all of the collaborations that are happening. I hope the public starts to get it like they do dentistry.
I'm glad you brought that up because when I made that comment about fear, I don't want people to misunderstand me. But the actual lecture I listened to was talking about zero res carpet, and how in that ad they talk about the mites and the bugs that are in your carpet, which you had no idea, right? You're looking down at your carpet and said, I got to call these guys. But that right there, that quote unquote fear, that's exactly what I was talking about. We use the OPD. So every single patient gets a scan and we have a topography, but there's this really cool feature that it shows, it simulates how the patient's seeing the world, right? If you're familiar with the device, it's got a canoe and a body of water. And the more myopic they are, then the more difficult it is to see off in the distance. And to pull that up and to see the kid, and I'd make a little joke, and the kid said, that's exactly how I see. And that is more telling to the parents, and I'll stick the +4s in front of their eyes as well. But they look at that screen and they look at their kid and they say, is that really how you see? Oh my God, right? And I find that is oftentimes a tipping point for them to start listening to me, because sometimes in the parents' eyes, the kid's already excited about getting new glasses. They already picked out the new Barbie frame, and so to them, there's no negativity to the -4 going to -550, right, in 1 year, right? So
David, what do you find is the most impactful for patients to say, yes, I want to do your myopia management program? Is it the vision simulator? Is it talking about disease? Is it talking about like quality of life?
I think it is, and we're seeing this less and less, right? We're seeing more young patients, right, that are much more myopic than their parents, right? But I think, to answer your question, Ariel, if we've got a parent who's got some pain points, right, a parent who's had LASIK, why did you have LASIK? Oh, they drove me nuts. Well, I said, that's your child for the next 20 years, right, and until they can get LASIK. So, basically, pulling up their pinpoints. Why, what don't you like about your glasses? They're going to surpass you. I grab mom's glasses and I do a quick, neutralization with some loose lenses, and guess what their RX is. And I'm like, oh, your son is about a half unit more than you are right now. And those are the kind of conversations that seem to, make a difference in having someone go forward with it.
What about yourself, Ariel? How would you answer your own question?
Yeah, I think what David said is pretty much what I do. I try to customize it towards the parent. If they're emmetropic, then I'm showing them what blurry vision looks like. And if I know the kid, really loves swimming, I'm like, can you imagine seeing the pool and all of your friends like this? And yeah, like David said, if they've gotten LASIK, then I'll say, gosh, if he's already a -3 at the age of 8, he's probably not even going to be a candidate for LASIK like you were. So I really try to customize it. I really started doing more of the emotional impact of myopia, and I found that to be more impactful than.
What is the emotional impact?
So the quality of life issues, just what I found was really helpful is I actually take the parent outside. I just step out of the exam room and with my plus lenses and show them things that are far away and say, if your child doesn't have their glasses, this is how they see the world. And could you imagine having to be like just absolutely dependent on this device on your face to be able to see and operate? And what if his glasses get knocked off and he's in an unfamiliar environment? Like, this is how he sees. Yeah. And what I really like to do that is super impactful for parents is projecting what their vision is going to look like maybe 2-3 years down the line if we continue to do just single vision glasses or contacts. Because one question is, well, what if we wait till next year? And you show them these are the changes that happen every year, and this is irreversible. We can't get this vision back. And that's usually when they're like, all right, what do I do? What's next? What are the next steps?
Right. I think there's a lot of temptation to, not scare the patient, but, to present to just shower them in the research and you're just trying to impress the important topics and points of what you're trying to get across. But like a strategy of fear, I don't know if it's going to make it. I'm always like, I'm always beside myself. Like I'm thankful for the smile I have. I had a great dentist as a child, but if you put 2 decisions in front of me and said, it's your eyes or your teeth, I'm taking my eyes every time. And it's just weird to me how as a culture, we don't value our vision the way that we value our teeth. And I'm always like trying to figure out what is it going to take for, this to happen in optometry? Like, how do we get that message across?
Yeah, one thing that I need to do a better job about is when I have my patients that are in, orthokeratology is really easy to say, tell me how your life has improved or what is different now that you can do that you weren't able to do before. And in my side, or multifocal contact lenses, same thing. And that is one way that you can kind of market your practice, but also market myopia management too, because they're like, oh yeah, I can play soccer like I've never played soccer before. And I forgot to tell my soccer friends about this. So I try to, every time that I come in, I try to remember to talk about their life in different scenarios where they kind of can market themselves. So that's something that I work on to try to do.
Yeah, David.
As we're talking about how to get the parents to make this decision, right? One thing that we kind of underestimate sometimes, and I think you'll agree with me, is that you do fit a child in Ortho-K lenses. They might be painfully shy. Usually about the 3-month mark, they come in and they are just completely different kids. Their personalities are completely different. So somehow this exudes some confidence in kids, shedding the glasses and not having the encumbrance on their face, and may even affect the way they move their bodies, right, in sports and things like that. So I've seen it in too many patients for it to be coincidental, and I'll bring it up if I've got a child that's rather shy, and I'll look right at the parents and tell them that we've seen this in our patients.
I hate to keep beating this horse to death here, but like, I feel like this is a unique thing that it started in my past. I worked in my father's optical as a child and then as a teenager and whatnot. And I just thought he was this crazy passionate guy about Ortho-K and taking care of his patients. I didn't know there were other doctors out there like this. And when I started working with the AAMC and I met doctors like David and yourself, Ariel, and I was like, oh, there's more of you. Like, and that's kind of the point I want to make is like, Dr. Despedita says, like, it's important to make the patient understand that you are the best, most qualified caregiver for their child. And so that when they get to the soccer field or when they get to those referral opportunities, they say, you won't believe the optometrist I just saw. And for some reason, I don't want to be a pessimist about this, but for some reason, I don't see those opportunities with corporate optometry or big box. And by all means, if I'm wrong about that out there, if anybody disagrees with me, please educate me on that. And I just wonder, what is it going to take in order to make that transition? I don't know. Do you guys have any response to that? I think we might take one or two questions and then we'll pop it over to Leah for our clinical corner.
You go ahead, David.
I'll just say that I think that all of these entities are completely different, right? And one thing about corporate settings, unlike a private practice, doctors aren't there for keeps. I'm a perfect example of that, right? I as soon as I could convert over to private practice, right, I got the opportunity and I did. And I think that either docs are very happy in the corporate setting and they're happy in a rather stress-free environment. But if they keep wanting more and getting more, then they eventually move into a private practice. But again, if they've been given hurdles, there are some corporate entities that put up no hurdles and lets a doctor practice to the full extent, like the doctor you mentioned at Walmart. And why would she ever leave? She's getting everything she needs without tremendous headaches that I had as a private practitioner. So, that's my thoughts there.
Ariel, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I really don't know the details of practicing in those types of settings. I've always went straight from my residency to, a private practice setting. But I would imagine that if you have access to talk to the person that's kind of managing your schedule and you walk them through hey, we're suffocating here with all of these vision plans. I'm having to see 5 patients an hour. Can't you see the value in having more of kind of this self-pay service and billing appropriately for it? And, that's just kind of the optimist in me. I have no idea the actual rules and regulations and whatnot that there are, but I would think as most of those other entities are owned by business people, that they would see those numbers and be like, well, heck yeah, let's do it. Let me pay for your CE to go learn more about it. If I was a business person, that's what I would be doing.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think Dr. Mohipu talks about that in that first episode of Knowns and Unknowns, if anybody's interested, about how she was able to work the system to her advantage to be able to start doing myopia management in that setting, if anybody's interested. So it looks like we're short on time here, and I want to hand it over to Leah. Ariel, thank you so much for being on the show. If anybody wants more information or wants to get in touch with you, how can they do so on the internet?
So my email is drc@studio-2020.com. So please email me. I'd be happy to hear from you guys. And Matt, thanks so much for having me. I've really enjoyed being here with you and David. It's just such a fun, awesome conversation.
All right. And David, same question for you. How can people find you on the internet?
Well, my email's a mouthful. It's dgrosswald@theicenterconyers.com. So theicenterconyers.com. And anytime through, Facebook Messenger is an easy way to catch me. And again, I appreciate you asking me to be a part of this. It was fun.
All right. I'd love to have you back on the AAOMC podcast, both of you for sure, to go deeper into these topics. So as soon as Leah's ready, we're going to hand it over to her for our clinical corner portion of the show. And while we're waiting on that, I'm going to take a question from the chat real quick. What is your cutoff diopters that you will not fit in Ortho K? David, what do you think?
Let's see, minus 1350. She was 2050 with her glasses and still is around 2025. So far it's minus 1350. That was crazy, huh?
Wow.
Ariel, same question.
I used to shy away from higher myopes until I just kind of started getting into a different design. So the highest that I've fit so far is a -8.
All right. Okay, so we're going to hand it over to Leah. We're going to mute our microphones and stop our video. And Leah Johnson needs no introduction, and she's here for our clinical corner. Leah, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So thank you, Matt. And wow, I learned a lot of different useful tips for pediatric patients and fitting myopia and Ortho-K. So anyways, today I'm going to talk to you about CooperVision Specialty Eye Care's Ortho-K portfolio. And here we have our specialty eye care Ortho-K portfolio. We have multiple lens designs to match both a doctor's and patient's needs. And so, as I heard Ariel mention earlier, we sometimes use different designs for different patients' parameters, for their, how much myopia they have. And so within CooperVision Specialty Eye Care, we have Paragon CRT and CRT dual axis. And this is our world's most prescribed design. It's very easy to learn, very easy to integrate into your practice flow. We have diagnostic sets and lenses that you can just immediately dispense and try on for your patient. And so with CRT, we have standardized parameters. And so it's very easy to learn when you're getting started with Ortho-K. However, once you have fit, a lot of your, simple or basic myopes, and you are going into more difficult patients, as we heard Ariel and David discuss, the higher amounts of myopia, you actually will need a more customized lens design. And that's where we have IC by GP Specialist. This is a lens that is fully customizable for your patients, for higher myopes, for flatter corneas, and it's specifically designed to match your patient's needs. We're going to talk a little bit about this lens design later, but it also has some certain features that help it have more peripheral defocus for that customized retinal profile. And then we also, within CooperVision Specialty Eye Care, have the GOV lens, which is a very effective lens for challenging corneas for your patients that have higher amounts of myopia. And then our last option that we have, but not least, is the Ortho Tool software. So Ortho Tool is a computer-assisted software. It's for ECP. So if you're the type of practitioner who likes to truly design your lens, know every single parameter, change within hundredths of a millimeter for each of these lenses, you can use Ortho Tool and the software to design your own customized lens for your patient. And so, as I mentioned, with IC, it's a fully customizable lens. And we have an adjustable optic zone based on the patient's aged or desired correction. So if you have a patient who is older and they are driving late at night, right, and that pupil size gets larger, you may actually want to increase that optic zone to have better vision, less glare, less halos. If you have a younger patient, there have been some studies that have looked at smaller treatment zones on the cornea, and that may be better for, myopia management. With the IC lens, we also have fully customizable alignment zones in toric peripheries as well for better centration and comfort. We have the MM1, which is a proprietary customized design, and this incorporates the base curve, the reverse curve, all to really enhance that retinal peripheral defocus that your patient would receive from the reshaping of the IC lens. As I mentioned, all of these lenses are fully customizable. And so with IC, you can have all of this individual customization. We have reliable and predictable results. In a study with IC lenses, we had a 87% first fit success rate with IC. And we also have this proprietary MM1, which stands for Myopia Management Retinal Defocus Profile Design. And so, as I mentioned, we have this whole portfolio of lenses and, when to reach for each lens, and so we created this kind of chart to really break it down on the patient fitting complexity versus the customization. And so with CooperVision Specialty Eye Care, we really have a lens design to match all of your different patient needs. If you're just getting started out with Ortho K and with myopia management, we'd recommend to choose a patient with lower fitting complexities, right? That's going to allow you to gain confidence and to get your skills of fitting Ortho K underway. And so with that, we would recommend for low to moderate fitting complexities for patients, patients with, flat Ks of 42 to 46 and, less than about 4 diopters of myopia. Paragon CRT is going to be really that just easy, nice, lens to fit for your patient, and it has standard customization. And then when you start getting into these more moderate to complex patients, with flatter corneas, with higher amounts of myopia, you are going to want to customize that lens more for the enhanced success. And then when we go into the really complex corneas, we have Ortho Tool, which allows you full customization. So you can make this as complex customized as you want for your patient. And we also have the GOV lens, which is standard customized. That is designed by Dr. Tung, and he designs, so he has the parameters already set for you. So lastly, how do you get started with CooperVision Specialty Eye Care? Well, if you are just getting started, you can get your certification for Paragon CRT lenses here. Here's the QR code. You can scan that with your phone. It will take you to a website where you can learn more about the parameters of the lens to get certified. And then for IC lenses, you can get certified here as well, going to this QR code on the lower right-hand corner. And you can also visit our website at orthokportfolio.com. We are all one company, but we have slightly different ordering and consultation lines. So you can just take note here that on the left-hand side of this chart, this is for Paragon CRT, and for the right hand, this is for IC, GOV, Ortho Tool by GP specialist. And then lastly, before we end, I just want to let you know that we have another myopia management webinar coming in. So if you're new to myopia management and you're looking to really build your myopia management practice, I would invite you to join our session 4 with Dr. Matthew Martin. This is going to be on December 15th at 5 p.m. You can scan the QR code here to sign up. And the topic for this myopia management webinar is marketing, social media, and how to generate excitement in your practice. And I think we heard a lot of great tips from David and Ariel today. But if you want to learn more on, marketing tools and how can you generate interest, please sign up for our webinar. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Matt.
All right. Thank you, Leah. And that concludes this episode of the Knowns and Unknowns of Myopia Management and other cool stuff in optometry. And join us next month for another dicey topic where we're going to talk about the role that myopia management is playing for the optometry industry and how ophthalmology is now adopting it as well. And if you like what we're doing with this series, please make your way to aaomc.org and consider becoming a member of the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control. And I would like to thank Dr. Cerenzie and Grosswald for their participation in this episode. And I'd also like to thank GP Specialists and Contimac for their support of this program. And for you, all of our listeners and viewers from around the world, thank you for your attention, and we'll see you at the next one.